Hi, welcome again to the conversation series Showing Up in Life with Vinay. Today I am speaking with Deepali S. She is sharp, witty, and never afraid to speak her mind. And I'm looking forward to uncover different aspects of her personality. So let's catch up with her. So, hi Deepali.
Hi Vinay, how are you?
I'm good, good. Thank you so much for joining from California on Sunday morning.
You're absolutely welcome. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Actually, it's end of Sunday for me.
That's
So
right.
already
That's right.
started thinking about Monday. Yeah. So as I said, thanks a lot for joining me on this conversation series, Showing Up in Life with Vinay. And I really highly appreciate because I really wanted to talk to you. For me, it is really your personality and some of the specific traits that I really appreciate. And I really wanted to tell you that on the call, but discuss you more on that, have a conversation and learn from your life experiences. So I'm really looking forward to our next, whatever, 30-35 minutes of this conversation.
Uh, Absolutely. I'm happy to discuss with you, any examples that I have that, that you find interesting. And I also want to tell you that I've been following your series and I've heard some of your interviews, and they are so much fun and so much learning, but at the same time, little tidbits of wisdom, little tidbits of experience that people have collected that you can absolutely relate to, and then you just keep them in the back of your mind as you go along in your career, in your life, and reflect back and think that other people have gone through this and how did they do that and what can I learn from that. So I really appreciate the little life series that you have going over here, and I'm happy to contribute to that.
Perfect. Thank you. And the first thing, probably, I'm not sure if I have already told you, since we know each other for almost 30-35 years now. Mm,
Right.
And over that period, what I really observed and what I really liked is your personality, the way you carry yourself. And one of the things which really stood out for me is you speak your mind.
I
So,
do.
and I really wonder, is that Deepali is the same in her personal life as well as at professional work?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. I am the same person everywhere. I am not different anywhere else. I'm always 100% authentic me. But I know what you mean. Like, I always spoke my mind, and in school I probably, got some people mad at me. Over time, though, I've been able to soften the edges of what I say, and a lot of times not say, right, not say at all, some things that come to your mind, but also I am very open and honest in my feedback. Now, this is something that has helped me in my past life, both upward feedback and downward feedback, in terms of what I think and what I mean. um, People who are working for you love and appreciate open feedback. They don't want to wait for a 3-month assessment cycle to hear what feedback you have for them. As and when, every day, whatever thing is going on right now, if they know what they're doing right or wrong, it is really good for them and to improve for them, and for them to tell me what I should be improving on. I don't want them to wait for an upward management feedback either. As regards upward feedback to my manager, also I am very open with them. I am very clear about things that I really love. I am also very clear about if they don't like something about what I'm doing, I want to hear that immediately, so that there is no hidden agenda. There is no lag in this feedback. It's real time, it's quick, and it's helpful. That's how I look at it. I take feedback well, and I really like people who take feedback well as well, so that there is a constant communication and improvement. I don't know if this entirely answers your question, because what I said is about formal feedback, right? But I'm also informally the same person that I was. Whatever is whatever I'm thinking, I'm telling you. There isn't calculation or manipulation in my thoughts.
Right. I mean, if I think from me as in a team, then I think that I would definitely appreciate if my manager is giving me the feedback, and because that shows the manager is really caring for my development. And at the same time, I know you work in, or in your role, you're actually dealing with the different global teams. And so they must be
Mm.
multicultural global teams. So, and then you might come across, it's not necessarily the same. Everyone takes it the same way.
You're absolutely right. Um, the way Americans take feedback and the way rest of the world, say India or Costa Rica. So I managed, my big hubs were in Bangalore and Costa Rica. And then I had several people across other regions. But people take feedback very differently. Americans are very direct. Um, Indians are not necessarily as direct as Americans are, or any place in the other world is not as direct as Americans are. And so that feedback has to be given well. Feedback there might be taken personally. And laws and rules are different about how teams can be managed, rearranged, reorganized, are all different in different regions of the world. So you have to adapt. A lot of travel, meetings together, face-to-face meetings is necessary to be able to run cross-border teams. You need to really get to know them well. I think we've had international teams way before the pandemic made it necessary to have international teams, and you know, teams that are all over the US and not in one place, physically not together and different. So feedback has been the backbone of that, because without feedback, you're not able to understand and improve your cross-border allocations, your cross-border collaboration. So we've been very particular in the past, and I have been very particular in the past to give feedback to people when situations like this arise, and feedback that is relevant and important to them in ways that they understand, which you can only learn by interacting more with them.
Do you receive feedback from, for example, these kind of different teams from different regions, and how do you really take that?
So yes, we receive feedback all the time. In addition to formal feedback that the company organizes, there is a regular cadence of feedback meetings every other week and every month. And a lot of times when you have one-on-ones with your team, I will set aside some time every other month to talk about their goals, their aspirations, their learnings, what they want more from me, what they want less from me. And it's a constant calibration. Nobody should be working in a silo and expecting something to change after 6 months if they don't like it. If I, as a manager, don't understand what their likes and dislikes are, then I'm not a good manager. I mean, the markets are so difficult right now. We are losing people all the time. There's attrition across the world, everywhere. Um, it is important for me to know what my team is thinking, because if I hold the people who work for me very close to me and everybody else leaves, with the people that I have close to me, we can restart the organization all over again. So I truly believe that people don't leave their jobs, they leave their managers. And that's the same for my manager, and that's the same for people.
I'm curious about is being as authentic as you are, and being speaking your mind, as you were saying. Did you face any challenges, in a sense, like people sometimes inadvertently you might have stepped, or might have felt like, okay, am I crossing the line? Or sometimes people really don't like that. So what kind of challenges you faced?
Uh, I'll be honest with you, I have not gone that far that I've pissed people off with my feedback. Um, I would say that most of the times I would only give, if it is negative feedback, or even if it's upward negative feedback, I would soften it up. And I would make it seem like it's my personal opinion that this is what it looks like. And if that person understands that or collaborates with me, then we'll work on it together to make it better. So a lot of times you get into disagreements with your manager, and you may not agree with what their way of thinking is, but I'm not going to go tell them, hey, I don't like that, let's not do that. I'm going to say, look, I don't necessarily think it's going to work the way you think, but because you think it that way, let's try and give it a shot for 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, let's reassess if that works or not, because eventually every person is going to have a different opinion. and you have to respect everybody's opinions. So even if you disagree with them, you have to try and work it out to see if it will eventually be a good decision or not. So although I may have given my feedback that I don't agree with this, I'm not going to say I'm not going to do it, because that's not how an organization works. Everybody's opinion has a place. Everybody's opinion has to be respected. Similarly, if there is somebody who works for me and I want to give them feedback, first of all, I tell them that I'm giving them, and if it's negative feedback, I tell them that I have your interest at heart. I know you may not necessarily like or appreciate what I'm about to tell you, but I'm doing this to make you a better person. And there's not too many people out there who are interested in your betterment. So this is the place I'm coming from. You don't have to agree with me. And if you do, then great. If you don't, then let's work on figuring out what is it that you want to do.
Right, right. So somehow what I'm understanding here is about the inclusion part, as we nowadays there is a big topic about, and which is absolutely right, that you have to have you can listen to different opinions of people in the team, and then you might also there might be the diverse opinions, and that can have a rich conversation. So
Absolutely. I mean, it is all coming down to some kind of inclusion, some kind of diversity conversation, which holds our teams together. We hire people from all walks of life, or from all ethnicities, from all over the world. And if we're not able to work cohesively together as one entity, then there is a problem, right? For example, we are trying to hire between, say, somebody who has fantastic experience, who has been doing this for a while in, say, San Francisco, or we are trying to hire somebody who has a similar but different kind of background from a different industry, is a woman who has been out of work for 2 years. Who do we hire? And these are conversations that happen every day. And sometimes one answer is right, sometimes the other is right. But you have to be able to evaluate different diversities and different ethnicities. Inclusion is not just about diversity of the people or inclusion of races, etc. It could be diversity of thought. And a lot of times we have people who do not like other people's ideas, or or dismiss other people's ideas. The person who's not speaking up in a conference room. I think it's important to listen to everybody, and then evaluate based on that what we want to do. I had an example where sometimes my ideas were not accepted. They were sometimes ridiculed, or not necessarily taken in the right way that other people's ideas were taken. For example, they might think that other people's ideas were good and they discuss the merits of the ideas, whereas for me, they would say, hey, nice presentation, right? So we need people to be all together and all at the same table. And I actually went and did talk to my manager about the fact that, hey, I didn't appreciate the fact that my idea was not discussed, being the kind of person I am. And it was good for him to hear that this is what it was. And next time, he made sure that to be able to bring my ideas to the table. I think that diversity also implies that some people are not comfortable taking certain kinds of decisions, and some people are. And we need to make sure that we bring all of their ideas to the same table.
So was it exhausting for you to create your place at a table when probably your ideas were not necessarily discussed?
It is hard work for sure. I don't know if I'm exhausted, but it's definitely hard work for sure. I worked in a semi-sales type of organization, and there just aren't too many women there. It's getting better, but it wasn't in the last 10 years. There have been conferences where you'll have 100 people at the conference and there will be 5 women. You'll enter into sales meetings when there is 30 people and you're the only woman. It is difficult to make yourself heard, but as long as you're making an impact and what you are saying is important. Now, in my case, I had a compliance background, and we were trying to do some revenue recovery type work. When you're coming into a room full of 30, 40 people, even if they're men, when you say things like, let me recover that revenue for you, let me increase your revenue by 4 million, 10 million, they're going to listen to you. So I think what you have to say is very important. How you say it is also very important. I think confidence helps, which can be built over time. Um, but having that ability to walk into a room full of people that you don't necessarily always feel comfortable is important. It is difficult, it's not easy, but over time it can be achieved.
Mm. And do you have any sort of rule when you are going for rule, in a sense, some rituals or rules or what that you follow when to gather that confidence when you are going for such important meetings where you know, okay, you are the only woman in a group of men?
I think the golden rule I follow, whether it's a team group full of men or whether it's a group full of women, it doesn't matter. Whether you're giving a speech in front of 200 people or 500 people, I think the important thing is to know your material. You really need to know your material. You really need to have seen it, discussed it with your team, discussed it with your client, for example, and also to be able to be open to say, I don't know, when some question comes up that is too difficult for you to answer. I think humility is important and confidence is also important at the same time. Um, Mostly when I would prepare for a meeting, it would be about the material that I'm talking about. And the second most important thing, if I was say talking to a customer and going into a difficult conversation with a customer, and there's like 10 people from the customer side, and it's just me, one person, I think knowing your material is very important, and listening to what the customer is not saying is also very important. Listening between the lines is important. This is all what I'm saying is typically selling 101. These are all the typical qualities of good salespeople, which I learned over time. But they apply to any large audience is to be prepared with what you're saying, listen to what people want, be humble about what you don't know, and always follow up with the information that they were looking for later. I would say that those are some of the most important things that I have worked on, um, whether it be difficult conversations or difficult things to present.
Absolutely. I think active listening is the key in that moment. Yeah. I want to take you to, I think 20 years, probably 20 years back, when I remember you being at a graduation topper in the university. So you must have your own ideas or dreams where you want to, go ahead with your career or your life. And then, as far as I know, because we know each other, so as far as I know, at least at that point of time, at the beginning, there was no necessarily the plan to go out of India. And then you ended up first in Singapore and then in USA.
I would say it was not easy. I had a lot of family support and I had a lot of time and patience that needed to happen, that needed to go by. Time needed to go by. Um, when you knew me 20 years ago, I was just coming out of college. I had met Samir, we were engaged. And when Samir had planned to go abroad to Singapore to work, we had sat down and discussed on whose career we were going to pursue. He had better prospects. He had ability to be more successful at that time. And we decided that we would follow his career and I would follow him into any region he was going into and then look for a career for myself. So I think that making that clear was very important. There were no, incorrect expectations at the time. When he moved to Singapore, I didn't have a visa or a job for a year and a half. It was difficult. I was sending 75 applications a day, and these are the days when we used to send paper applications. There was no online application, etc. So a lot of work happened at the time. And eventually I did get a job there and a visa there allowed me to work, etc. We worked there. I worked there for about 2 years. And then we decided to move to the United States. My husband's organization asked him to come over to United States and I followed him at the time. Again, uprooted from my Singapore job and in the US, again, without a visa, a valid visa to work and without a job. And so what I did to keep myself occupied and continue learning was I completed my CFA at the time. So it was good, time well spent because I didn't have the ability to work. So I could study more. I finished my CFA at the time. And then there was a law that was passed in the United States that allowed the L2 visa and people to work. And so when that happened, I could join back PwC because they loved the fact that I already had PwC experience in Singapore. So I joined that. And then later, when we were starting our family, we went through some, personal work that we needed to get pregnant, and I took some time off for that. So I took another 3 years off out of my career to get there. And finally, we have a beautiful daughter. I think that also was a hard decision. It was a good point in my career, but we wanted to give our personal life some specific attention, and we took decision that I would take a break at the time when my daughter was about 3 years old. Um, I think Samir was like, I think you watched enough Dr. Phil. I think you need to go back to work. And again, it was a decision we took jointly that I would pursue working again, that we had enough support in our family to be able to manage my daughter's schedules, etc. So I was back at work. I would say there was a 7, 8 years gap in my career because of that. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. I love the fact that I took time off from my daughter. I would never in a heartbeat not do that again. I would only say that all of it was a calculated risk, and time needed to pass every single time in order for it to resolve itself. It wouldn't work for everybody. I think if you do not have the ability to wait and have another person earning, I think it would be a way bigger risk. But I was able to take that risk because I had, one stable income in our family. I was able to wait till I could get a job. It needed some patience, a lot of heartache in the middle because you're giving up your valuable time. But eventually, I felt I reached a good place because of the time that I waited and the decision that we made for our family.
And in that process, in that journey, when you had like, okay, job, gap, job, and then gap. So you said like 7, 8 years of gap.
Mm.
So when you went back, and I'm asking this because I work with a lot of women who are trying to either go back in the job, or
Yeah.
they are already in the job, but sometimes when they move into the or go upwards in the ladder, sometimes sometimes the question of am I good enough? And so it could be lack of clarity or lack of confidence, but
Mhm.
yeah, many times these questions come up in our conversation. So did you have that question anytime in that journey?
There always was a little bit of anxiety when you're going back into work. When I moved from Singapore to the US, I was still studying. I was completing my CFA. I think it wasn't that bad at the time because I felt like I had continuously studied, and when you're still young and still studying and getting back into work, it's I didn't feel it was such a big deal. But when I left my job for 3 or 4 years in between, and I tried to get back into the saddle as we speak, it was hard. You have a little lack of confidence there. When the firm like PwC has very different systems of operation, and you're going into the industry, and I had never used Microsoft Outlook before in my whole life. So it definitely was a learning curve, and people do need to be patient around you to be able to coach you. My team was fantastic. It was a great learning experience, good learning from them. But I'll be honest with you, if you're smart, unless and it's my favorite quote, unless it is really rocket science, you can learn it. You can hit the ground running. It takes some time. It takes 3 to 6 months. I have a colleague who she hadn't been working for 10 years. She was an engineer. She had joined anew, and she was really worried about the fact that, look, I don't know anything. How am I going to even work here? I feel like I'm not contributing anything. I don't understand what's going on around me. And I told her, look, we're going to be having a very different conversation in 6 months' time. You're going to come back to me and say, these are all the things that need to be fixed. These are our problems. I understand. And that's exactly what happened. Women especially don't give themselves enough slack. They don't give themselves enough credit. Be kind to yourself, right? It's hard. We are very hard on ourselves. You need to be kinder to yourself. Give yourself some time. When you get back to work after a long time, it will be hard for a few months. Look for some people who are ready to help you. Ask all the stupid questions. It doesn't matter. I don't mind people asking me questions, very basic questions, because you're new. People understand that. And initially, you may not feel confident, but that confidence will come. Give yourself 6 months.
Another point, and or rather something which is I really appreciate about is, as we call it Marathi in our mother tongue is bindas. So you come across as someone who really doesn't really get bothered by someone else's judgments about
Mhm.
yourself.
It's true. I don't. I was just having this conversation with my mom. It's funny. She brought up this conversation about some comparison between somebody and somebody, third party. And I told her, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Like whether I have a certain thing in my life or not, it's not there because I didn't want it. I, all the decisions that I take for myself are my own decisions, and I am clear and confident about what I want and I do not want. And it doesn't absolutely does not matter to me what other people think about that. I have always been that way, and I think my daughter is also developing to be that way. Um, I think it's important to coach children also about being confident about the decisions that you're making, and not really, I wouldn't say not care, but not give importance to what how other people are judging you. There are people, grown women, who still have that problem, and I still have friends who ask me that question. How is it that that is okay that other people say these things about you and you don't care? And I said, I just don't. It just doesn't matter to me because you worked hard to bring your life to where you are, and really it's just their opinion about you, and how you develop yourself is completely up to you. Your confidence is completely up to you. Your opinions are completely up to you. I one don't really have probably the time or the energy to manage other people's expectations about me and to really care as much about their judgment because I've worked hard to be where I am. This again, Vinay, you're asking me this question, but I've never really thought about it. I probably always worked under that philosophy, but putting it into words feels interesting.
Yeah. The another aspect about you is your creativity,
Hmm.
and I know you really whether it's your creative rangoli or whether it's your interest in food, as well as some other like your poems. So there is that creative aspect in you, creative personality. How do you one there are two questions. One is how do you give time nowadays for to kind of nourish that part of yourself,
Mhm.
and the second question is how do you use that creative part in your professional work?
Um, that's a great question. I think finding time for yourself is really important. And finding time for yourself to do what you really like is also very important. It's not just you took time off and then, just did nothing, which also may be great, but to be able to devote time to your own passion is very important. Um, I am able to make that time for my work. I think as you grow in your career, you figure out way to keep time aside for yourself and give time to your passions. Now, I still love writing and I still love reading. I write blogs, I write poetry, I work with my daughter to write things about like stories. I still do Rangoli, I do design. I still have a lot of different kinds of artistic pursuits that I still follow. And I find time for them because if I don't do them, I start feeling, nervous energy that's not being channeled in the right way. So I do take time to do that. If you are a creative person, it will find a way into your job. So in my role as a semi-salesperson, selling is extremely creative. It's always outside the box because you don't know what's going to come at you from the customer side. like I said to you before, a lot of times listening to a customer and not, and even hearing what they're not saying is creative. Selling is creative. Why is this person not ready to accept what I'm saying, or was not ready to press the button and say buy? Is it because of what their boss will say? Or is it because they don't have a budget? Or is it because they don't understand what I'm presenting to them? All of these things, and how am I going to be able to present to them in the way they like it and the way they're able to sell this easily to their management, is all a creative process. You can work with certain material that you have collected, but eventually how you're able to convert that pitch into a sale is a creative process. A lot of people are really, really creative from that first 5-minute conversation when you are introducing yourself to this new person, to this new customer, and how you establish a relationship in that first 5 minutes is a creative process. I have had people who have taken pictures of their gardening in their backyard and started that conversation that way. Or I've had people who talk about, look, I'm in this ranch and I bought this new truck, and look at how I can use it to uproot the unwanted trees in my ranch. And this is how they start conversation. People are really, really interesting. And I think that's how creativity finds a way into your jobs. And I think that has helped me as well in the past. I love finding creative solutions to problems, and problem solving is an important area in the kind of work that I do. Creativity really helps thinking outside the box there.
Excellent. And I really love your poems and the blogs, I must say.
Thank you.
Are really, really interesting. So, yeah, thank you so much, Deepali. It just went, this time just went fast.
That's
And
right.
I really appreciate all what you said, and it was really interesting.
I'm
So, thank
glad
you
it
for,
was great meeting with you, Vinay. I appreciate what you're doing. This is so much fun.